Hey everyone, Larry Bailey here, and we are going to go through 24.2's major release for Encompass release notes. There's two different versions to go through, of course. One is desktop and one is web. So we're going to focus this one on the 24.2 major release. We're going to break this up also just to keep it digestible between the feature enhancements. So we got that going on because we got a ton. And look at all the stuff we have to go through. And then we're going to have fixed issues for version 24, again, for Banker Edition. And that'll bring us to the end of that. Remember, if you don't have this, this is a public-facing link, the help.icemortgagetechnology.com. That's a revised URL. So if you head over into the release notes, it's always important, right? You're always going to see Encompass here at the top. It's also important to roll down to the bottom, and you're going to see Encompass Web version right here. So if we click on that release notes, you'll see 24.2 release preview. So remember that these are, it says right here, these release is not the release notes. So if we look at that version of this, when it decides to load up here, we'll go ahead and all right, so if we come into this version, again, there's only 20 pages here, right? And so what we'll do is when we get into here, we'll do the release preview notes, and that's it, right? There's only one. So we'll do the web, just like I did for 24.1, we'll do the web as its own thing, and we'll do the banker here. We'll break it up into two, which is the feature enhancements and then the fixed stuff. All right, so let's get into desktop review. As a reminder, so with every major release, if you check your version manager in your admin tools, if you've got it set to manual, as a reminder, you cannot stop the 24.2 major release unless you open up something with ICE and do a direct opt-out. So if you know what I'm talking about, you're probably already on the list. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you probably don't need to worry about it. In any event, big news, ICE PPE, right? That's replacing EPPS. So Encompass Product and Pricing is being rebranded to ICE PPE, and it's going to, as a reminder, it's going to be completed. So you know what's coming. You know it's all API based, and it's pretty slick. I think a lot of folks are going to be very happy with it. There's also more affordable housing enhancements, so we'll go through that stuff. There's HELOC loan enhancements. We'll go through that stuff. Predefined fee options, so that'll be interesting to look at. That'll be a paradigm shift specifically for fee descriptions for line 704. Remember, the 700s are for the real estate transactions, so with the NAR settlement, that'll be interesting to read that. You've got some new SMS API for bid tapes, so if you're doing bid tapes, this is interesting for you. So I know a few people out there that are doing them, so I'd be interested to see how that affects you. A new pop-up window to prevent unsaved changes being added to bid tape management. We've got also calculation for other new mortgage loans. So this is if you're doing additional loans area, so the VOAL. So that'll be good. We've got some updates to HMDA reports. New Mexico state-specific. It's important to always remember about that state-specific information input form. You can get to them in Input Form Builder if you ever want to put them all in one place. But the good news is Encompass dynamically updates that for you. So I would always default to native before I try to create anything custom. New modification loan section for the OLDD for those delivering. This is for Ginnies, right? For the Ginnies. There's an enhancement for the income analyzer income comparison tool. This is for ICE Mortgage Analyzer's users. So there's updates to that, and that's an interesting part. Actually, I talked to somebody last week who was interested in doing OCR tech and specifically for income analysis. And they thought the ICE's DDA, document and data analysis, which ties into this mortgage analyzer. I mean, it's just there's so many friggin' acronyms. Anyway, they thought it was great, but the problem that they found with DDA is it didn't identify assets. So it wasn't a right fit for them. We've got some new loan archive updates. That'll be interesting to read through because so many people had opinions about how that went on the rollout. Then there's enhancements to the ECS data viewer tool. That's on the the closing Reg Z or Reg Z CD. Just showed my age. I said closing Reg Z. Yeah, I did say that. All right. Some updates here. We're on page 11 now. Some updates here for Encompass admins. So there's a new installer. The new installer supports silent installation. It also changes. So keep in mind for those that are doing, especially those that are doing virtual machines, this is going to be important to call out. So if you're using virtuals, make sure that you check with your IS or IT teams so they understand what the new installer looks like and how it functions. You also have loan archive features now available via APIs, SDK, and web version. So as a reminder, I've been talking about Encompass Web now for 16 months, 17 months. And the idea here is that ICE wants to make Encompass Web be at or more the term I was used at the time was parity plus, but basically everything you can do in desktop you can do on web. That's the idea. And then you can also do things on the web that you can't do in desktop because again, we want to get to the web in a very methodic and full encompassing, not to use that pun, but full encompassing way. So we'll get involved in here. So check that out again. Now that you can actually archive loans. And that gets into this whole conversation is should you create an archive folder? It's a good question. I've always been a staunch advocate to keeping less folders means more. And if you can archive loans within a folder, is that good or bad? I don't know. This whole thing is kind of odd to me. So we're going to talk through that. We've got new lock fields added. So you've got a URLA.x145 on line E, like Echo. Credit cards and other debts to be paid off will now show up in the Fannie and Freddie tab in the ULDD. Authorized users can use the lock manually to override system calculated fields. Yeah, we know about those gold locks in there. We don't know if they're a good thing, but again, this is a call out to Encompass administrators. And by the way, there usually is a workbook. It's like a checklist that goes through that ties in with these release notes. I always encourage admins to print that sucker off. Or if you like electronic, open it up as a PDF and make it modifiable, and go in there. Make sure you've identified who's taking care of those tasks in there or not. External reporting database and data replication tool officially sunsetted. Yay! ERDB is gone for good. Thank you. We've got some new persona options for the web version and Encompass scheduler tool. Of Encompass. So this is really important because, for those that got their hands on 24.1 with scheduler on the web, and we were like, yes, and then it didn't work correctly, and we were like, no. And then we heard from ICE it's going to be updated in 24.2, and we're like, yes. So this is what this is all about. And I've been telling people now for a long time, you need to get to the gold standard of one persona per user. And I've been really talking about this specifically because personas go into roles, right? We know roles have two ways to get there. You've got either personas or you've got user groups. And if you've got users with multiple personas, that means that they could be in multiple roles. It gets more complicated. So you definitely want to get back to all of the best practices I've been talking about for a very long time with regards to personas. There's also a persona setting for access to Wells Fargo integration removed. Thank you, that's gone. New reset limit for rate sheet ID checkbox. That's an interesting one. I didn't even understand what that was. There's a new allow product and pricing provider from secondary, new checkbox. Again, these are all updates, right? And yeah, it looks like we'll get into those details here. All right. So those are special callouts for the for everybody who's an admin listening to this, which is usually everybody that's listening to this. In any event, make sure if you are running SDK, get the APIs. I know not everything's an API yet, so I understand if you're still running some machines out there. Keep in mind this is a major, so I think sometime later this month you'll get your hands on the 24.2 in your testing environment. Make sure you test your SDK software against that 24.2 to make any modifications as needed. And then remember that when your production goes to 24.2, just update your software for your SDK pointed to your production environment. All right, let's get into the weeds. And now we're going to scroll through all this stuff and get into this. So we're on page 17 now. We've got a rebranding of the Encompass product and pricing service. ICE is thrilled to get put ICE everywhere. So because they want to bring more clarity, right? All things on ICE, which is great. And so you'll see that the provider list will now say ICE PPE. That's really an important part. You can also, visit more information about ICE PPE on the ICE.com. So don't look for Encompass. I don't know if anybody ever does this, but if you've got any integrations that are looking for EPPS, make sure you update that as shown on the image. We've got affordable housing enhancements. So we've got it's going to help us collect and apply the median family income and the area median income limits and data. And that can help you make sure you determine eligibility. I've seen some folks run into this issue earlier this year where they tried to apply the AMI limits. And so when you get the new fields have been added, you've got an MSA name, field 5017, and an actual MFI year, 5018. And this is important because earlier this year, we didn't have 2024 data. We were working off 2023. And then when we got the tables for 2024, we had some folks that were using outdated data, making bad decisions. Maybe not bad. They're making decisions based upon old data. And so there's an image here on page 18 where it runs through, you can now get the MFI, median family income, and you can actually see what the MSA name is, the MSA number, and the actual data. And then what's on screen here is we don't see what the total household income is or the total household adjusted income is. It's blank on the screenshots. But it's important to make sure that you're addressing this in your workflow. So what's also going to be interesting is the FFIEC MFI button previously provided in this section has been renamed to get MFI. Now, what I don't know, and you can see this once we get the input form, is what the action changed. I'm expecting the action changed. So if you were automating this or you had this button somewhere else in your workflow on a custom input form, make sure you address this to make sure you update your action, assuming that button's action name changed. That's usually something people forget. All right, so the AMI percentage field added to loan programs, loan templates. So you can now actually, that's pretty cool. So now you can actually add the AMI percentage field, which is field 4985. It's now included in the loan program, loan templates. So you can actually address that in your templates. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So as an example, if you've got a loan program that's built specifically for an AMI threshold, you can add that in there. Okay. And you can see that in here in the screenshot. So this is page 19. It's a new little field in there. So now you can fill it in, and now you can see how it travels into the loan file automatically. Okay, rocking. To continue here, we've got new affordable lending setting. We've got an Encompass settings. All right. Another reason why it's always important to know every single setting of Encompass, because we're going to see new things. So now we have a new affordable lending table. So for those that have always taken my training, which by the way, you can check out my training at masteryencompass.com. And it's a 12-month subscription. There's nothing else like it in the universe because it's awesome. And you can go through and join for an annual subscription and then show up to meetings, live meetings every week, 4 days a week, really for ongoing training as well as recorded lessons and updates. So there's a new affordable lending setting in the tables and fees of the desktop settings. And so the last 3 years of MFI data provided here, blah, 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 you can download it. Okay, fine. So you come in here and download. So my training was always update all these first of the month, every month. Yes, it might be excessive. Some people call it. I think it's important to just get into a habit because as we saw earlier this year, you had folks working off the wrong AMI data. So anyway, you can now, it's important, right? It's important for USDA, Home Ready, and Home Possible. And it now this data is provided on the new AMI limits tab, while the MFI data is provided on the MFI limits tab. So 2 tabs, 2 pieces of information to make sure your workflow is updated accordingly. Automated data completion for MFI. So this goes back into, remember earlier in 24.1, we had an AMI automation. So now we've got MFI automation. And I got to be honest with you, I've never done MFI loans. So I personally don't have any idea what this is. But as an admin, I know that I can automate it now in 24.2. So you can add this in if you have not automated your AMI. maybe this is a call out to update your AMI and your MFI. Remember, go into admin tools, read through the settings here. By default, of course, ICE smartly has made sure that this MFI option is set to disabled. When you get in there, simply double click it. Here it is on page 22. Double click it. And remember, you've got home counselor automation, AMI automation, and now MFI automation. Cool. Hey, anybody doing HELOCs? We've got some updates for HELOC loans. New fields added for the HELOC qualifying payment. Oh, this is cool. I've done a few HELOC implementations over the last 12 months. And so now you have a qualifying loan level field number 5025. It's now provided on the HELOC management input form. And here you see a screenshot down there, HELOC qualifying payment. That's in the section, should be on, yeah, HELOC management. There you go. And so that's, we're at page 23. And so it goes into some details here, and I can relate to this. We had definitely some conversations about what is a person qualifying off of. A lot of folks ran into struggles with making sure the underwriters were using the proper qualifying payment. And so this section goes into it. It's important to note here, gang, there is no migration of data from existing loans to field 1725 with the version 24.2 update. It's important to understand for existing loans, the new field 5025 will be empty. So if you're as an admin, if you're writing requirements for field 5025 because you want to make sure people do that, it's going to be important to make sure that doesn't include for loans that were created prior to 24.2. So the 5025 field 5025 will be empty in Encompass until a user changes a dependent field in the HELOC qualifying payment basis section of the input form. There you go. More updates for HELOCs. So you had, so this talks about if you go to the 1008, if you go to the transmittal, there's always this weird thing. And normally we would say, oh, you just have to lock it. So I'm going to read through this out loud because it's healthy to hear this. So in previous versions of Encompass, when processing a loan for a HELOC in second position for a primary home, the payment for the first lien was not populating to field 1724 on the transmittal summary on the 1008. The resulting DTI was being understated. In addition, the HELOC in third position for primary was not populating. So in Encompass 24.2, the payment for the first lien on the VOL is now included in 1724. Hooray! And the second lien for HELOC and 1725 for third. So that's actually really cool. Thank you, ICE, for doing that. I want to do this. I want to make sure that this is an important piece. Remember that in your VOL, if you're updating your VOL to match your credit report, but you break it down to where your taxes and insurance are separated, remember the context here is you're doing a HELOC in second or third lien. And your first mortgage, let's say it's $1,000 a month, okay? Total payment. So it matches your credit report. But in that $1,000 a month, 200's taxes and 50's insurance. I know ridiculously low numbers, but bear with me. So really the P&I is $750, right? Because 200's taxes, 50's insurance. So what do you want in the mortgage in the 1008? Do you want $1,000 in field 1725? Or do you want $750 because then it breaks out the 200 and the 50? So this may not fix your problems. If you're the kind of shop that actually runs out where you want the P&I to show on the 1008 transmittal summary, to show it accurately based upon the P&I versus tax and insurance, this might not really fix your problem, but this does fix the situation that most people have, which is they don't really want to break out the T&I. They just want to show the full PITI in field 1725. Admins, check with your workflow, check with your companies on how you're using it. You might find that this update doesn't affect your workflow, but for others it might. Sorry for my voice, gang. I'm still getting over a flu. Sorry, you got to listen to my raspy, crackly voice here. So we're on page 24 now, and the CLTV for VA refinance is now calculated using the same logic as the LP/DU. This is for the combined loan to value, by the way. So when processing a VA refinance, there were some issues, and so read through this. This is the bottom of page 24. If you've had any problems with the ULDD and the CASA SRN, .x 168 or 167 fields, this is your jam. Check it out. To continue on page 25 here, we've got updates to address the incorrect HELOC initial payment calculation when interim interest is collected. So this is interesting. So and I found this through the HELOC implementations I told you I was helping with. So some companies do a zero due at closing, meaning their first payment of HELOC is due 30 days from closing, or 30 days from disbursement, technically. And that means there's no interim interest. But there are some companies that actually set the HELOC payments to be due on the first of the month. That means you have to collect interim interest, presuming you're not closing or funding on the first of the month. So, so there are updates here. This is the page, top of page 25. And so, in any event, the HELOC initial payment field now calculates correctly and reflects the monthly P&I payment less the interim interest when the field 4665 is selected. And I totally skipped over this. The 4665 checkbox is selected to indicate that there's interim interest. All right, we've got a new field specific to Minnesota statute. So Minnesota calling you out in HELOCs. There's a specific statute 47.59.12. And it's now available in the important terms and agreement language tab. So if you're doing a HELOC in Minnesota and you need something to do with that statute, kudos, you got it. The field is always displayed on this input form. It is not dependent on the subject property state being Minnesota. They didn't want to do any form load code on that sucker. So it's there whether you're in Minnesota or not. Don't let that confuse you. All right, we're going to, again, we're in features and enhancements. We're on page 26. So now we're updates to forms, tools, and calcs. We've got new functionality to change circumstance comments auto-populated after selecting change circumstance description when not using fee level disclosures. Okay, in English. So new functionality has been introduced to auto-populate change circumstance information. If the fee level disclosure checkbox is not selected, the following change circumstance comments fields are now automatically populated after users select change circumstance. So this is for LECD comments in 2010. I don't know, there must have been some kind of break or something, but the bottom line is, gang, if you're not, this is managed in the change circumstance setup in desktop settings. You should always be making sure that if the user selects this lookup tool here, it'll bring open the list of reasons, and you always want to make sure administratively you make sure that there's always a reason tied to a comment, meaning that in the settings, you want to make sure if they look up something, if they select something, whether one or more than one, these boxes are automatically checked and grayed out. And that's because in the setting you've associated the reason for the change circumstance with a CFPB level reason. So what's going on here is these three call outs apparently didn't bring over comments. That's been now enhanced and fixed. I think it's more of a fix than an enhancement, but that's just my perspective. All right, here's the next one. Select from a predefined fee descriptions to populate 2015 for field 704. That's cool. All right, so then you can now do all kinds of commissions paid at settlement to this drop down. It's field 704. So if you've been jonesing for a drop down in 704, you got it. And of course, there's now a new column. So for those that love managing the itemization fee management in tables and fees and desktop settings, there's now a new section for 700. Keep in mind that this dropdown here only exists if the section 700 has a checkbox next to the fee name. So if you have any fees that you've been wanting to get up in the section 700s, go into your itemization fee management, check the box for section 700. Make sure it's mapped also, please. Like, you don't want not mapped. Like, that's, I don't know why they did that. Persona overwrite. This is also a great call out. Nice job, Ice. So persona overwrite tab. If you've never seen this before, it's because you've never logged in as admin. You will only be able to see this if you log in as admin. So if you expect somebody to be able to free type and they're not a super administrator, that's why it's persona overwrite. If you want to give that persona the ability to manually type in a fee name in that drop down for 704, you've got to log in as admin and then see persona overwrite. Also, this is a healthy call out. If you've not logged in as admin to check persona overwrite, you should, because you should be aware of any personas that have the ability to free type and in their in their respective sections. All right, next one, field lock added to line E. like echo. So this is for section L4, the URLA lender. And previously this had a field lock icon, but the lender did not. So you now have the ability for field lock. So now you can field lock that. You can type it in manually if you want. That'll prevent you from having to manually update the 1003. I can see this working for purchases, meaning that there's always this problem with purchases, paying off debt, and it gets confusing. And so I could see that being used in purchases probably quite a bit. That's at page 28. All right, on to page 29. Field lock added to HOIPA status field on the input forms. So you've got another field lock added. Goodness. So more field locks added. You got an also update the calculation or other new mortgage loans on property the borrowers are buying or refinancing. So you've got this VOAL. If your company's not using VOAL, you're probably not familiar with this, but it's been updated to include the entire loan amount for mortgages instead of only the amount applied to down payment. This update is made by helping users clearly see the total loan amount, initial draw, and the amount applied to down payment, monthly payment. So that's for the VOAL. Again, migration notes here call out admins for active loans. It's this new calculation is applied to field URLA.x230. For non-active loans, meaning loans that are literally HMDA status not active. So if you've closed, adversed already, whatever, the URLA x230 will be locked and retained to preserve the existing data because it's presumed that you've already reported it to HMDA. So you don't have to worry about this updating on you based on something else. It's going to stay locked on 24.2. For those that are doing HMDA reporting, your information updates continue. We're at page 30 now. So we're going to update the HMDA reporting year for repurchased loans field. So we've got that in there. You've also got a manufacturing home with type added. So that's pretty cool. So a lot of folks doing manufactured housing, which kudos. I actually, when I started working for American Financial Resources back, 2013, I think it was, 2014, they did a lot of manufactured housing. It's actually one of their best performing loans on their portfolio. And since then, I work a lot now with First Signature Lending, and they do a lot of manufactured housing too. It's a great market. Anyway, there's a manufactured home with drop down, and previously this field was only provided on the ULDD PDD input form. It still remains there as of 24.2, but it's now there also on the 1003 Part 4, right under construction method type, so it'll be towards the top. All right, we're going to continue here. We got new pre-approval credit report checkbox added. This is totally cool too. So a lot of folks have been doing pre-approvals. So now we have a new pre-approval credit report has been added to the credit information section of the borrower summary. So for those of you that do custom borrower summary input forms or loan officer workbenches or toolkits or whatever you're doing, keep in mind this is a new checkbox field 5006. Currently, only the pre-qual credit report or the new pre-approval credit report is selected, not both. If one of these checkboxes is selected and the other is selected, the original checkbox selection is cleared. And so here's what it looked like. So if you're on the borrower summary origination standard, you now have pre-approval credit report versus a pre-qual checkbox. And so there you go. And it gives you some language up here about it's been added. Whatever, read it. That's at the top of page 31. Continue on page 31. We got a down payment percentage and down payment dollar amount. Fields added to 1003. We've got new fields added. And again, this is on the URLA lender, section L3. We've got down payment dollar amount. And previously these fields were only provided on the borrower summary origination. Update was made to make the 1003 URLA consistent with the corresponding field. So you don't have to go over to the borrower summary origination. You can just see it on the URLA lender section. Cool. New fields added to New Mexico. So we have another state specific. So new fields added to that New Mexico. If you do business there, you'll see these new fields. Take note, because if you've got milestone completion rules or persona access to field data entry rules built for your New Mexico loans for disclosures, you're going to want that. So anybody out there doing automated disclosures, make sure you build this in. To continue on here, on page 34, we've got Fannie Mae 15 and 30-year ARM index options are now retired, so they'll be gone. New error message name validation update reference special ASCII characters. So in areas of Encompass where a unique name may be entered, such as file name, blah, 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 an updated error message is now provided if the user uses characters not supported. And so this is reference. And it's interesting because I had this problem. So what you're seeing on the screenshot is weird characters, right? It's just really calling out what you can use. And I had a Maven error last week that was a weird one. It was like error code 2000, I think. And basically there was a wingding character in the fee label description of the itemization, which caused an error. So this is not that, but it's just another way to say, listen, only specific ASCII characters can be used. If you want to see a list of those characters, look it up, Google it, you'll see. All right, or on page 35 here, we've got updates to the ULDD PDD input forms. We've got new data points for loan level credit scores added to the ILAD import. So for those that are using ILADs to import, you'll appreciate that. You'll also see that there's new ILAD is a collection of loan application data based upon MISMO version 3.4. Excuse me. So you'll see that you got a validate export button removed from the ULDD's input form for Ginnie Mae tab. It was outdated, and honestly, it shouldn't have been on there, so they removed it. ICE removed it. New modification loan section for ULDD. So if you're doing loan mods to Ginnie, you've got new fields added. Check out those fields. We're on page 37. If you're using ICE mortgage analyzers, we've got enhancements for the income analyzer income comparison tool. I don't know why that's in here, but okay. That should be on that release notes. Oh, because it's an input form. That's why. It's actually a service. I don't know. I'm really confused on this. If you're using, bottom line here, gang, if you're using ICE mortgage analyzers, it's in the services tab. I've never used it, so I'm kind of clueless on this part of update, but there is an update for it. You can read all about it. We're on page 41 now. Back to everybody land. So loan archive updates. We've got loan archive features now available in API SDK and web version. Totally cool. And so basically when you're doing loan queries, this is now available. And so that's on page 41. All right, so homepage modules. Users can now select include checkbox for the following modules. Oh, I don't like this. I actually train against this. The homepage modules, I don't know. I get why these modules, maybe some people still use them. I actually advocate against them because they increase, I believe, they increase load time and nobody sits on the homepage to go find stuff anyway. Do they? I don't know. To me, this is a real call out. I love using ATI's Bullseye platform, which is super easy to use and extraordinarily affordable, especially for mid to large size organizations. So everybody can get to every piece of data all the time. Yeah, I don't use HomeTab. This just goes on to show you how to do it. It is important here, though, dashboards and reports. So remember, this is when managing the queries for dashboards. We're on page 43. This is a big call out. Listen up. So you now have a radio button for all loans except archive folders and archive loans. So if you want to make sure you get current data, if you've got archive loans sitting in your non-archive folders, if that's the workflow you're going down, it's maintenance, baby. So now you got to make sure you update your dashboards and reports under the folders to make sure you choose the correct radio button. So there's a snap on page bottom of 43 and top of 44. You got a snippet of what that looks like. To continue on here, loans move from an archive folder, now retain the original state. So I don't know, it looks like there was some behavior that was unexpected. So read on page 44 for that. You've got updates for correspondent lending. So new RON fields added for additional correspondent lending support. You've also got enhancements for ECS data viewer. So ECS data viewer for those that use it, that's great. You can now view fields and data that are sent to ECS, aka Mavent, for compliance reviews to display the compliance review results imported from ECS. That's good. So it shows you the ECS data viewer along, and you have two different tabs there. So you have the Encompass loan data, which is what we're used to, and now we have compliance review result, which is great there too. That's actually really cool. I'm wondering if we can use these fields for other things as well, like dashboards, or not dashboards, but pipeline views. Interesting. That's a very interesting. I can see people putting those kind of results also on a custom input form. We'll see. Compliance. So here's all the fields. Correspondent.x fields. They're there. New fields for correspondent appraisal valuation data. So if you're bringing in correspondent appraisals, you now have new fields for that, gang. Check them out. We're on page 49. A ton of fields. It's great. Updates for enhanced conditions. This is my jam because I love enhanced conditions and you should too. If you are struggling with an idea of how to get to enhanced conditions, head over to mortgage.community and check out where we're at. All right, so let's get into updates for enhanced conditions. I love the fact that ICE continues to improve enhanced conditions. I've been teaching about these things really for, at this point, 18 months. So awesome stuff. So first thing is there's increased character limit for a condition field name. That's great. I guess there was a limit for the name. You know, one of the things that I think people were having was you don't need to update the name. Like, we're so used to having names being really long in standard conditions. Enhanced doesn't work that way. So just as a reminder here, enhanced conditions name is just the name of the condition. The actual description's in the internal or the external. And also the field's been updated to use this limit also for 255 characters in these other spots. Okay, that's cool. I guess they're all tied together somehow. Who the hell knows? Newly added condition now highlights. That's pretty cool. So to make it easier to locate a new enhanced condition, has been added to the conditions tab in the e-folder. It's now highlighted in blue. Okay, fine. Use the update to the partner field in the column label. Oh, okay. So I guess if a partner, that's interesting. So I guess if a partner integration is creating the enhanced condition, the service that created the enhanced condition is now listed. So note this field is only visible when the source of the enhanced condition is Partner Connect. Oh, so Partner Connect, by the way, AKA Investor Connect. I guess they're going through an unofficial relabel here. So if you're bringing in that's weird. So I think this is Encompass Partner Connect, not to be confused with Investor Connect, because it says Encompass Partner Connect right here. There's a value populated for the partner as configured. All right, so I guess if you're going through and it's updating information by creating conditions and the source is Partner Connect, I guess it's going to show as the source, which is good. That way you can tell how the condition was added. In addition, the corresponding column in the name of the conditions view e-folder has been updated. Note that this column is not part of the standard view. So again, if you want to have this, you need to customize columns. Keep in mind, there's no persona-based thing for this. So if you like this feature, you need to go around and train your teams on how to individually update their their column headers in their condition view, and then teach them how to save their conditions view. Internal description column added to the enhanced condition on pop-up windows. So a new internal description column has been added to the following add conditions. Oh, that's pretty cool. So you can now not just search by the name, you can search by internal description. That means you can search for stuff. You can actually use it properly. Nice job, ICE. So that means you can have a name that just says, most recent pay stubs, or maybe that's even different, but, pay stub condition. And then in the description, it's like most recent pay stubs over the last 2 months or whatever. Anyway, reduce spacing between condition name and description. I don't know why that's important. Condition name, external. I guess people, again, are still putting the condition name and not the external description exclusively. I don't know. PTA. Oh, this thing? Okay, I didn't realize that was even a thing. So that's been fixed. If you have that happening, it's now been fixed. And when you get 24.2. Condition details screen updated for proper tabbing order, so their tab sequencing was out of. By the way, this is another thing. So remember, input forms have a tab index, and so it looks like the tab index was out of sorts, and so ICE updated the tab index to go as shown on screen. Thank you very much, ICE developers. There's an update for formatting enhanced condition virtual fields on custom output forms. Okay, this is actually a thing. So like I said earlier, I've been working with enhanced conditions since December of 22. And back then you couldn't even print these things. It was literally broken until like May or April or something of 23. And so right here. So it looks like what they're doing is it was configured to not include for numbers. I don't know, man. So to prevent Microsoft, oh, it was a Microsoft thing. Oh, I didn't have this problem. So basically, if you had a sequential number for each condition, which we would always do, right? Some people do bullets. Well, I shouldn't say we always do numbers sequentially, but a lot of people did bullets. That's what I always did. But if you did sequential numbers, you would have this problem. And so they're giving you guidance down here on how to prevent the Microsoft auto numbering to apply a number. Yeah. Okay, fine. And that gives you the screenshots. This is in Word, by the way. This is a Microsoft Word. So they're teaching you how to use Word so that your output is as expected. Another update here, enhanced conditions, latest status, date, and disposition now refreshing to correct status consistently. So this thing I've talked about this thing for a while. So this is getting fixed. That's great. So the disposition is getting updated, your little check mark there, and it's giving you the latest status date. That's awesome. Thank you for addressing that. Okay, and so that's it for enhanced conditions. Let's get into feature enhancements for web version, Encompass Web. So the following FHA correspondent fields. I guess you can kind of see what's being used on Encompass Web, right? Correspondent. And so it gives you new correspondent fields for FHA. So take note of those. New fields added for support MI Center. So you've got a MI rate quote ID field and a product description field to address. And that's it for web version support. In desktop, there's a whole nother, by the way, there's a whole nother walkthrough for web version updates. The pre-release notes are only 8 pages, but there's one thing in there, teaser. There's one thing in there that you're going to want to see. So go check that out when that's posted. Here's feature updates for Encompass settings. Persona settings updates. You have a new persona option for the web version of Encompass Scheduler tool. So if you wanted to go in and allow them to get to the scheduler event tool, you can do that. That's within the web version tab of the persona. You also have a persona setting for access to the Wells Fargo that was removed. We talked about that before. So that's over in here in the GSE services. It's gone. Additional enhancements, new reset limit with new rate sheet ID checkbox added to commitments tab under external company setup. Holy goodness. So basically under the commitments tab, you're allowing this persona the ability to reset the limit with a new rate sheet ID, specifically for commitment authority, right? This is you buying loans from somebody else, by the way, in case you didn't understand that context. There's a new, at the persona level, there's a new allow product and pricing provider to selection from lock request form. So this right here, this is call out. So in the product and pricing setup, you've got allow product and pricing provider selection from lock request form and secondary lock tool. So basically what they're saying is that it enables a user to select different provider. Oh, that's actually pretty damn cool. So here's what's going on. Normally when you set up Encompass, it's with one provider and that's it. And so if you've got multiple PPEs, you can actually allow this you can actually give your persona the ability to modify what PPE they're using. And this can be really helpful if you're a company that wants to use a particular PPE for most of your products, but not all. This will allow your users to stay in Encompass instead of going to the PPE on the web. That's cool. Nice. And so that's what you're showing here. It's basically a service provider list within product and pricing provider. There's a new icon for Encompass admin tools and related tools, so you'll get we'll get new icons for admin, all these other things. And they're giving you these little, they've updated the icons. ERDB is going away. We talked about that. Another feature enhancement, trade management. For those that are using trade management, there's a new SMS API. you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It's on page 65. Some additional enhancements that don't fit under any category: updates for loan save performance, a new approach to managing the impacted fields in the Encompass reporting database has resulted in improved system performance. Test that. If you really want to benchmark yourself now with save, and then after you get 24.2, hit save again and test it, see what happens. Reminder, remember this is called out to admins, that for everybody else, there'll be a new Encompass installer, and a reminder here before a user can log into Encompass for the first time, the Encompass Smart Client components must be installed. This is a one-time only procedure, blah, blah, blah. Starting with, that's normal. Starting with 24.2, though, a new installer will be made available. This new installer supports silent installation and also installs Encompass much faster than the current installer. More details to come soon. And so that's a call out to all the IT teams that are going to go, they have to basically build new images and new ways to install this thing and deal with all that, especially if the user's not a local admin. That's it for feature enhancements. Really good stuff. I'm really happy with what I'm reading so far, especially because it involves both desktop and web and all kinds of other cool stuff. On the next recording, we'll get into the fixed issues that were fixed by ICE for version 24.2. We'll see you there.